In today's clip, I want to talk about a few common daily chores that I still do either manually as opposed to outsourced or manually by hand as opposed to by the latest tech, and how this is all part of a greater philosophical change that helps me in the long run. Ayo, Zenpak here. Another day to reflect on how lucky I am. Frankly, the longer that we've been quarantined, mostly to home base, the more I realized how lucky my life is right now, okay? So here are some of the house hacks or life hacks that I've been using to keep up the spirit of self-sustainability and to anchor my post-fire life, okay? These are things that I can easily do more quickly by incurring a slightly higher cost, but I still choose to do manually because of various more mental or spiritual reasons. So if you're still here, comment, like, and subscribe because you're a generous human being. I may not know you, but I'm positive that you are. Okay, task 1. Washing dishes by hand instead of by the dishwasher. So why would I do that? I think this may be a cultural thing, as I've never heard of any Chinese immigrants use the dishwasher in my life, up until this point at least. Maybe because we don't trust it? I've read apparently machine washing maybe saves water, so someday I might cave, but not yet, okay? Especially now that I have a lot of time, right? For me, manually washing dishes actually gives me a sense of accomplishment. It can even feel remotely meditative. I don't know, maybe I'm a weirdo for saying that, but that's how I feel. Task number 2, cooking food from mostly raw ingredients instead of, heating up frozen meals or buying takeout. Caveat. I used to buy takeout all the time when I still had a job, so I can understand that. If you have a regular job, it's tiring, it's mentally draining to cook when you get home. But now that I'm in the post-fire life, I'm really enjoying the process of making something custom and specific to my taste, okay? This is not possible with everyday takeout. Now, I'm not saying I'm against restaurants now. I'm not, but I'd rather go to fancy places that make food that I can hardly replicate at home, or things like fried chicken places, right? Those aren't fancy, but I also can't remotely replicate deep frying at home, so that fits. My point is, compared to everyday takeout that most people buy or spend most of their restaurant budget on, I'm fast approaching a level where I think my own stuff is actually on par or even better. And I'm only a year or two in my journey, okay? And really, the real reason is that there's hardly any more joy for me personally than watching someone else eat the food that I make and liking it. Task number 3, I still walk to the supermarket, or the local market, instead of always driving. We do have a car, and if I drove to the market, it might take, say, less than 5 minutes. And if I walk, it takes about 15 to 20 minutes, okay? I choose to walk about half the time, and I just carry a backpack to help me carry stuff back. So why would I do this, right? For one thing, it's exercise, and for another, it reminds me of why I picked a state to live in where it's nice enough to walk almost all year round, okay? It was just New Year's, I was walking to the market, and it was 70 degrees outside, so it was perfect for walking, okay? And this distance to me is perfect for spending an hour just being outside of the home. Even on the hottest day of summer, this 40-minute round trip, it's perfect to get me sweating, but not so long that the trip would make me feel exhausted, okay? I also know research shows generally Americans don't walk enough, and that wasn't really much of an issue for me or for my wifey because we used to live in New York City and Chicago, respectively. But now, having a reason to take a stroll, I think is actually quite helpful for both the body and the psyche. Task number 4, I mow my own lawn still, instead of paying someone else to do it for me. Now, I get most people mow their own lawns, but for me, this is the first time I've regularly lived in a house with a lawn. And, my wife and my friends often make the comment, they're like, hey, we could just pay somebody else to do it. I know that because, again, I'm rich by the general standard of measuring by versus Americans. I am rich, but I still do this because I think it's good to learn how to take care of one's own place, right? And frankly, again, I could use more exercise. I even picked a mower with a cord, so it's slightly more painful than the best and most efficient cordless mowers, because you know what? I really wanted to feel like I'm working my own land, okay? There's some romance to that. And for a new house owner, I think it's totally worth putting in my own sweat equity where I'm comfortable. Task number 5. I cut my own hair instead of going to the barber. Now, coincidentally, I started doing this 2 years ago, as soon as I hit fire and left the corporate gig. Guess what? Now that we're in a pandemic, I'm actually more and more comfortable to continue to do this task, okay? Now, caveat, I'm still totally willing to go to a barber for a real haircut. The difference simply is that maybe I'll go like once a year, and the rest of the year I can just maintain the general shape of the nice haircut, okay? Now, my wife might disagree with how well I'm doing the maintenance, but you know, first of all, she could help me if she wants. She hasn't yet, but I'll talk her into it eventually. I mean, there's also the lack of, you know, a need for a real barber these days, okay? Because I don't have to appear in front of clients or troops. Heck, these days we barely see any strangers, so how good of a haircut do I need anyway, right? Or I could look at it in a different way, right? It does just give me more time to practice and perfect my very low repertoire of self-barbering skills. I just realized that in a way this is actually similar to washing dishes by hand. I know this sounds silly, but cleaning up my own dome makes me feel just a bit more like in order with life in general. So in conclusion, I am not saying anyone should copy what I choose in my daily tasks to continue to do manually, okay? What I would recommend, though, is to think about what things you outsource right now to other people or to technology, and whether doing some of those things manually again will give you some sense of satisfaction, even in exchange for more work, okay? Now, don't do any of this to save money, okay? I think that's silly. The saving money part is just simply an accidental byproduct, right? But choose the task you do because it helps your mental game. I think I've said this before, but these good habits, the mental habits, are what will keep us all happier in the long run. Okay, that's all I've got for today. Check out some of the other videos that I've made in the past on the corners. Have a good day.